It's so this, see this
That's a
little,
camera too?
yeah, isn't it? It's actually kind of cool. Let me show you the
Is
box.
anybody else zoom in?
See this little box
Turn your
right
light away.
here? Do you see over in that corner? See how Peter's on and
Yeah,
I'm
I saw
on,
Peter
and
on,
then
yeah.
there's the screen of everyone. So if you
when
guys
you talk,
speak,
it moves. It moves with the
Oh,
voice.
wow, that's amazing.
it is pretty amazing. It's being slow at the moment though. It didn't pick you. It didn't pick you up. Usually it'll spin around.
That's good. It's busy.
All right, so it is 5:31. I did start the recording just so everyone is aware of that, so that we have that. And I just want to thank you all for coming. This has been, it's a collaborative process of collecting input and having our engineers put it on paper, and then here we are for some feedback, and then we'll go back to the paper. So your input is really important. I've received quite a few emails of people as well, which is great. That's great, because we want to make sure the intent of this all is to improve this block for everyone, improve it for safety, improve it for pedestrians, improve it for customers, improve it for the businesses. So if anything that we're looking at doesn't seem to be an improvement, then we need to take a look at it again. So thank you all for being part of the process, and I'm gonna turn it over to, this is Tim, and this is Roy there from Cardinal Engineering.
Roy Seeley from Cardinal Engineering. I'll just open with, we met with you 2 months ago, I think it was. We came up with 3 options, which I think it's been circulated. What we gathered from the first meeting, what we heard that was important was sidewalks, parking, green space, and just the circulation of the whole parking area. Because right now it's kind of every other direction. So from there, we came up with 3 options, met with Jim and Michelle once or twice, and kind of tweaked it a little bit with their feelings. And then since she's sent it out to you, and everyone has different thoughts, which is natural. Just to say that this is a concept. This is not design. This is nothing in concrete. This is pictures on paper. And everyone's going to have different ideas. We'd like to walk away with kind of a consensus of the overall idea, mainly traffic flow, one-way versus two-way, because that really sets the plan for everything. Parking on Titus, the bigger things. Green space, location of trees and all that, that's design, honestly, years down the line. Town has to get funding, and then from funding, they hire an engineer to actually do real design. And then the meetings are, this is very important, but then it's really the designers and the residents really put things into concrete on paper. And that's what will be built. So this is just a way for us to kind of get it all going in the same direction. Some people may want one way, some people may not. It's, something's got to give. So eventually the option that we pick will be used for funding applications, along with the cost estimates. The town trying to get funding. And again, that application, the concept plan isn't in stone. Again, there'll be meetings before design ever starts. With you, with the town, with whoever the engineers are, and the whole process doesn't start over, but at least we're starting, when the engineers finally get it for design, they got a jumping off point. So there's 3 options, and again, it's nothing's in stone here. This is just thoughts. So I'm gonna let Roy go through the 3 options, and maybe after, when he's through, we could, discuss them.
And I'm gonna do my best to find them. Which one do you want first?
He's on option one.
I'm on
Option,
option one. We'll
okay.
talk a little bit about existing though first.
Okay, I'll leave existing up.
Because our first task was to see, what do you have? How much parking do you have? What do you need? So we went through, and then you can see we located all the businesses. I may have missed one or two, but I think I got all the businesses noted here, the square footages of the buildings. And then we went to the zoning regulations to see what's required, and we looked at what you actually have. Now, according to the zoning regulations, based on the square footage and the uses, there's a minimum of 100 or a minimum of 63 spaces are required for this, for all this office space, with a maximum of 140. What you have here, when I went and I counted all the spaces, made sure the survey included them all, and there's a lot like in front of the bookstore that aren't actually striped. So I just looked to see how many spaces you can get there, but you have about 113 parking spaces. Like I said, 63 is the minimum required. It has a maximum in the zoning regulations of 140. So you're about in the middle of what's needed for parking here. And I understand, because I've been here at noontime, that there aren't enough spaces for the amount of people using this, especially with people coming in and out to the, especially the restaurants and things. It really needs more parking. So what we did is our first layout, where we kept two-way traffic throughout, but we tried to maximize the number of parking spaces and also provide sidewalks for safe pedestrian access. Make sure it's all ADA compliant, and then trying to add, knowing that this large green area will be shrunk down quite a bit, is adding many little islands and bumps out, bump outs we could that can be landscaped, have trees, etc. So this layout, we can maximize parking. Has 127 parking spaces, so it's an increase of 14 spaces over what you already have. And that doesn't include the 21 spaces I'm showing here on Titus, which are 90-degree parking spaces. So that maxed out the amount of parking, the part we could determine. And then for pedestrian access, we included a sidewalk around the perimeter. And then we added connection points into the interior. Yellow is new, orange is your existing sidewalks that we're keeping. There's a bituminous ramp that runs down along the side of the building here. We improved it, made pedestrian access. You have the stairs. We're adding stairs here, but it won't be right now. Those ramps are too steep. They don't comply with ADA, so we're just putting in a set of stairs there. Set of stairs there with an ADA compliant ramp there to get people up to the upper level. And we're adding a diagonal sidewalk here that's ADA compliant. So that gets people from the perimeter into the site. Also, adding ADA compliant ramps here and here, so people can get across and access all the development, the stores, farmers market and stuff. So again, the idea was two-way flow, except for the location here to get to the bank. Because there is the drive-through and the ATM. But other than that, it's two-way parking. I'm sorry, except and also in front of the bookstore, we're keeping that one way. We're keeping these little loading areas. One thing it does do, it cuts off the garage from the parking lot. We added a few spaces in that location.
Roy, will you just say again? I'm sorry, I was having technical difficulties. That option one
Option
is
one,
how many parking spaces?
127,
Not counting Titus. So it went from
Not
113 to 127?
Yep.
Okay.
Why wouldn't you include the 21 on Titus?
Well, because it's not really part of the interior. There could be different options for that on Titus. So we just didn't want to include that in the count and confuse it. That's almost a separate,
Because you can always add that on after.
right, it could be added or done first, could be done right away.
Right.
But we just didn't want to include it, and also we didn't look at the gravel lots that's on the town-owned property that proposed community center. Show them here. We understand people do park there. I saw that when I was out there. But we didn't include any aspect of making any improvements or to that area as well. So then the second thing is Tim had said is we wanted to look at one-way traffic and see what that impact has on the block. The first thing we did is we took Titus and we made it one-way clockwise. The reason we did this, there wasn't, or still isn't, no right turn sign here to drive here, so people wouldn't be able to go that way to the north, so we just kept the traffic the same way, going clockwise around the block. What that did is allow street side parking. Here, again, I didn't include this in the town here, but there's room for some street side parking. An easement would be required to put the sidewalk, would be on the property of the pantry. And I also put parallel street side parking here instead of the headed, just as a difference, see what impact it would have.
Can I make a comment on that? One problem I see with that is that with the parking, with the road going that way, people coming down from the green are gonna, if they're going to gas station or Burgundy or, they're gonna turn, we're gonna have a lot more traffic through that Marty's corridor. Because people are not gonna drive all the way around. So I feel like that could be a problem. Because everyone going just for gas or going out to the building are gonna cut through.
So let's keep going through and then keep your thoughts. And option 3 may be a compromise to everything, and we'll just. Go ahead.
Yep, so again, it's one-way traffic primarily. So you're going south down Titus. You have, you can enter the parking lot here, it's angled parking. One of the benefits of angled parking is the parking lot itself gets a little narrower from a 60-foot wide parking lot when it's head in 90-degree parking to a 55-foot wide parking lot with 15-foot track line. So it gets a little narrow, a little less impact. Again, so we kept one way and out, and then a second, one way heading back north in front of the pantry. And so you have circulation out, circulation within. This lot stays the same. This area stays the same. The area in front of Marty's stays the same. What this did allow is slightly larger. What we did in this concept was make the area directly in front of the pantry larger. But it could be shifted, it could be changed, and the island itself could be made a little larger. But it was, again, it's just the first concept we came with to try to improve traffic flow, and secondly, to still try to get as many parking spots as we can. So there aren't as many parking spots in this layout as there was in the two-way traffic. This has 119 spaces, again, not counting these spaces here, not counting the spaces here. And again, continuing with the pedestrian access from the exterior and in, and then across 47.
So one reason I'll just say this, the reason there was a question about why we're not counting the parking spaces on Titus, zoning is going to look at the parking in the parking lot. They won't count the parking on Titus. So those requirements have to be met as a separate parking area. So they're two separate.
So when you say 127 spaces proposed, that doesn't include the 19, for instance, an option. It's 120 spaces hundred and twenty-seven.
127.
In your key,
interior
it says
side.
hundred and twenty-seven proposed. That's all within the square. That does not include Titus Road.
Right, exactly.
All right.
But we have to stay between that, what the regulation was, what was it, 140 max and
63 minimum.
163 on the bottom.
And we know that the 130 existing really aren't enough during the peak hours. And so the third option is kind of a slight combination of the first two options. Primarily, we're keeping the two-way flow through here. Of course, Marty still stays one way. In front of the bookshop stays one way. But it's in order to increase the size of the island a little bit. We made it one way in front of the pantry. Again, that gives you another extra 5 feet to get through here, and we're able to save a couple of the trees that are actually in the island now. But again, it's pretty much the same thing, same as the two-way. You have two-way through the majority of the site, one way up, but two-way in. You know, this lot would stay primarily the same. Again, the garage gets cut off from the rest of the lot, just to try to get as many spaces as we could. Pedestrian access, same perimeter, same interior points, just slightly different layouts. Again, those are the three primary options that we came up with. You know, there's an infinite number that we could have done. We just tried to, again, look at the three main points: maximizing parking, pedestrian safe access through the site, and seeing what we do to keep as much green as possible.
So Titus Road is two-way on option 3?
On option 3, Titus stays two-way.
Are there any parking spaces added to Titus Road? No, you don't have any. Okay.
Well, they're not in the
Street parking.
count, but again, I just kept.
No, I mean the other, I mean the back. So,
No, there really
that's
isn't.
just two-way with no additional. parking.
Right, right.
Thank you.
And again, our final layout could be kind of a combination that you could still, it'd be much more impact on the pantry's property, get some parallel parking on the west side of the roadway. Looked at the east side of the roadway for both sidewalks and parking, but there's just so many driveways. It just really doesn't work with anything on the east side of the north-south leg of Titus. Really, the only place to really certainly have location for additional parking is, you know, along the riverside.
And Roy, would say again, option 3 had how many spots, interior spots?
Has 124. Yeah.
Okay,
So, you know, we lost a couple because with angled parking, the distance along the curb gets greater because of the angle. And so you lose parking just because spaces take more space linear. You know, the lot itself gets thinner, it's not as wide, but you lose spaces because of that angle.
Roy, can you just describe a little bit about space requirements for parking? I've had a lot of questions about, you know, what is the code for amount between one row and the next, like backing up and stuff, do you know?
Sure, for two-way parking, you know, 90-degree parking with a two-way aisle.
Mm-hmm.
It's an 18-foot space on each side and a 24-foot travel aisle. So it's a total width of 60 feet.
24 travel because it's two-way.
Because it's two-way.
Okay,
But also to allow room at 90 degrees to back up.
right, okay,
So even if there was parking on just one side, and it was two-way traffic, you'd still have an 18-foot space and a 24-foot aisle. But when you have parking on both sides, you get total width of 60 feet.
okay, great. And then angled, how does that change?
Angle changes because now you have, because of the angle, you have about a 20 going perpendicular curb to curb. You have a 20-foot area for the parking space, a 15-foot travel aisle, and then another 20-foot distance for parking, total width of 55 feet. So you save 5 feet with having the angled parking across the lot.
Thank you. That's helpful. Can you also talk a little bit about, I've had a bunch of questions about the handicap spaces and what's required and
Yeah.
how you chose to put them where you did?
Yeah, I didn't know, when I walked the site, I didn't know any signs that said handicap parking, but from what I understand, in front of the bookstore, the spaces, I don't know if it was actually, if it's actually signed or not, but it's the only one that's my understanding, it's actually designated as a handicap spot.
It's not signed.
Yeah, I didn't think it was.
I think there's something on the building. No,
Yeah, but not, I mean, there's not something. right?
Yeah.
it's not painted on, or it's not,
And
yeah, but
the
there's,
ramp itself is not ADA compliant. The number of handicap spaces that are required depends on the total number of spaces you have.
Oh.
You know, it's a part of the building code, the state building code. Off the top of my head, I think it's 2 spaces are required for up to 50. And 1 must be a van accessible. Trying to remember again, numbers. Yeah, I apologize, I don't recall the actual, I think it's, again, I apologize for the error, but it's 2 spaces are required for the first 100, and then 2 for this additional for the second 100. But 1 has to be a van accessible space, it's just different dimensions. Standard space is a 10-foot parking space with a 5-foot striped aisle. And a van space is an 8-foot space with an 8-foot striped aisle to allow for a lift. So we looked at the total number of spaces, you know, being around 120, you would only need 4 handicap parking spaces. Because you're over 100 or less than 200. But I also wanted to make sure that there was handicap parking available for all the uses. So, for instance, in this layout, I put a handicap spot in front of the pantry. I have 2 spaces here where the handicap ramp is to get you up here. I didn't want to lose any parking, but I did add 1 in this layout. I did add a handicap ramp here. So we have a handicap here in front of Marty's. I put a handicap spot and a handicap ramp there. And then for the bank, I gave them a handicap spot, and also for the uses here, the office building here, I also put, just so there's a space available, handicap accessible space for each of the buildings. Just trying to improve that. And again, handicap ramps everywhere in all the crossings, you know, all the driveways. Improving the handicap ramp here, the handicap ramp on the other side of the street, just to really improve access, not just for pedestrians, but you know, people with that accessibility needs.
thank you. I think it's really important. I've sat at Marty's and watched somebody have to wheel someone out into the road to get up onto the sidewalk. So I'm just wondering, Roy, what if you could expand on the zoning just a little bit? Do they care if, like, when you're talking about per 100, that's like for a big lot, do they ever look at each business? Is each business have any requirements, or is it, would they look at the block as a total? Like if
I
we
think in
chose
this
not
case-
to do something,
Right, in this case, I think, and again, it's the building official, not
Okay.
really zoning, the building officials in charge of parking spaces, handicap parking spaces. If we're to take each property separately, they each would require 2 spaces.
oh, each property separately would require
Because up to
2.
the first 100, 2
And
spaces.
they are all separate properties.
Wow.
So, you know, you lose another space here, maybe 2, because you have parking space and the striping. You know, you tend to lose even more parking, but I think in this case, we're looking at this globally, and I think the building official and zoning would both look at it globally, that it's a combined parking lot. And what we're doing, we're offering more than it's required for the overall total parking. But, and we're also providing it for each building in different locations so that, every building has an accessible space.
Interesting. I didn't realize that. Thank you. That was
I'm sorry, I've
informative.
been blocking your view the whole time.
You're fine, I can see that.
Michelle, only 3 buildings actually own parking, right?
Um,
Riverside owns parking, the combined bank, James McLaughlin.
Yep.
Parking, and then, David Miles. owns parking. The rest of the parking is predominantly on town land.
correct. And Titus. Titus is,
Actually, that would be
the
the
garage.
existing parking we're talking about.
This- Proposed parking would be.
The proposed parking actually proposes that some of those spaces, at least 5 are private.
Can I, so is it correct to say that this third option maintains the most green area?
Yeah, it did. It added another 5 feet to the width of the main island. Now, the end islands are pretty much the same. Some got a little bigger, just the way the layout changed. And because of the angled parking, this island got bigger. Now, this island, they also got larger, just the angled parking.
Right, do we know the existing width of the island? Do we know that? We must know.
Not off the top.
I was gonna try and compare the two.
Sorry, is there no way to keep up? Are there 2 trees, Michael, currently in the island or 3?
There's 3.
There's 3.
On this plan, there's 1 missing. which is
It's right
taken
here.
away.
Yeah,
Where?
it's
There's no
right there.
green, there's no green spot. I didn't see
No, it's not green because it's going away.
Oh.
it. It's going away, that's what I'm talking about.
that's where
I
it's,
did
it's,
plan
it's,
that one to move, which is a mature tree that was planted by Billy Vader and myself about 25 years ago. And it's the major shade tree that people enjoy when they take a rest from walking around everywhere to get under it. To replace it with a new tree certainly wouldn't give you back what you lost. Just to point out your, I answered your question. As Tim mentioned, I mean, it's locked in, so that tree might end up staying there, but we wanted to at least get it
No, no,
out.
this is why we're
the value
clear
of it, what-
that if
Yeah.
business owners and residents would rather have a large island there, and then the rub is you're gonna lose parking spaces.
Well, the numbers, the
And-
parking, yeah.
So it's just,
When you do the numbers for what sacrifice, are you done? Were you ready for questions? or-
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay,
let's just show, one last thing before we forget on the back, the Green Hill. Where's Green Hill?
oh,
To show that there won't be any parking on Green Hill.
okay. Or 40, you were talking last meeting, the possibility of some parking as traffic coming, but that's not.
We were,
Is that out of the?
we're on
picture?
talk. quickly
yeah,
about-
explain
Yeah, so
that.
I looked at 2 different options, but I also, first thing I did is I looked to put in parallel parking. That was the first thing, is A, add parking, and B, traffic calming. And so I tried that, and I don't show it because it didn't become an option. Technically, based on all the driveways, on the roadways, all the intersections, the only space you could put parallel parking is here between the
Yeah.
2 driveways. And even though you're getting close to the intersection, so you really only have here, because you might squeeze a spot, maybe 2 there, but the problem with on-street parking like that is it also blocks the visibility and sight lines of the driveway. Because now you have a car
Yeah.
sitting there, so I know people do park there, it's not saying you can't park there, especially, I guess during like the farmer's market and things, people do park. But, from our standpoint, from an engineering standpoint, we really can't, try to put parking on street park. So then we looked at 2 different options that would also provide traffic calming. One thing is that the road is exceptionally wide. I think you have 7 foot, you have 12.5 foot travel lanes with 7 foot shoulders on each side.
Mhm.
That's exceptionally wide, which is why, people do park there. So the thought was to narrow the road. So the first option was just take the shoulders, and here's the existing shoulder on the east side, is move the curb line in. Same thing on here, is bump it out. Here's the existing curb line. So we're just taking that 7-foot shoulder, making it a 4-foot shoulder, and a 12.5-foot travel lane to an 11-foot travel lane. So it narrows it down, that tends to have people slow down as well. Again, redoing the islands, the intersections,
So that would be more green space then.
it would be more
Islands would
green
be-
space along the road, correct?
On the road, not a Titus Square, but along the outside.
Yes,
Along the
yeah,
outside.
you'd have a green belt between the sidewalk and the curb. The second option we looked at was, instead of widening or narrowing the road, is there's actually enough space to put islands in the middle, similar to the parking lot over here, where you can put in series of islands. Again, going to an 11-foot road with a 4-foot shoulder. That severely restricts traffic.
Would those be able to be planted? Or
They'd be able to
how-
be
how
planted.
wide?
If they'd be planted, like, the width varies, so I didn't, you can see they get pretty wide down here. They could be planted similar to what's in the parking lot. You can do a hardscape with planting islands within the islands. Whatever we do here, it's gonna have to be approved by DOT. And their maintenance people will not like to see raised islands. Because it's
Wow.
because of plows. But we think that,
They're not gonna work if trees are probably roots.
but there's ways to get around the roots. There's what's now called structural planting soil, which you put it has stone mixed in with the planting soil. So it gives the roots a place to go and provides, opportunities for moisture to get to the roots. So that's something you look at, but you also look at the type of plant, the type of tree. Red maples are known to have surface roots. So you don't want to plant red maples, you want something that has a deeper, deeper root system. Other things that we can do, I know there's a temporary sign put up, but again, letting people know speed limit is 25 and how fast we're going, people do tend to slow down. When they see how fast they're actually going. At the crosswalks, we put in the flashing beacons. Again, warning people as they're driving that there is a pedestrian. I know of the school, the Francis Gunn School, they have these there. And again, the islands with different treatments. This one's right over here where it's actually flush and it's a hardscape, but it's also provides a safe place for pedestrians. When in this scenario, a safe place for pedestrians to land if someone is ignoring the rules of the road and isn't stopping at the crosswalk. There's a raised island with planters, all possibilities. One thing we also did as part of this is we did a traffic count and speed count of vehicles through the site. And we did see that the speeds aren't as fast as you would think. I think the average speed was about 30 miles an hour. But I think there was a limitation to where those counters were placed. And people may have been naturally slowing down, like for instance, to make the turn. But the data that we did receive, I mean, there were people, that were going 50, 55 miles an hour through here. But on an average, most people are fairly close to the speed limit.
Roy, I know you had, well, you pulled some pictures and you had seen some, are there examples of raised boulevards on state roads? Has DOT approved it somewhere before?
To be, I would imagine there are, I just can't think of any. I
Alright.
know,
If you've been in Farmington, West Hartford, 44.
Mhm.
They just did that a couple of years ago, almost from the hospital all the way to West Hartford. That's all raised beds with planters
Awesome.
and flush ones, a
Mhm.
mixture of both.
And they recently approved that.
It's built now.
Yeah,
so,
they just finished it like a couple years ago.
Yeah,
All right.
it looks nice.
It does. Look-
Oh,
it looks
yeah.
really pretty,
Well, I've seen
But
some,
that's a
in the,
much, I mean, to be honest, 44 is a much wider street. They have parking on both sides, the median in the middle, and they still have wide travel lanes. So for the plows, it's not
Not a big deal.
it's not ideal, but it's not as tight as out here. But you know,
they still have to plow around it. I mean,
you
it's,
still, I mean, you go to DOT and you do what you can to get things approved. I mean, it's just a slow process sometimes.
right, thank you. Are there any other questions about the traffic calming and options for 47 there for Green Hill?
For that option where you were shrinking the shoulders,
Right,
is that still gonna be safe for pedestrians and as for me, because I go around there all the time? Because right now, I mean, the shoulders are pretty wide, so you feel kind of safe, especially in the winter when they don't plow that sidewalk.
well, I'm not showing, them, of course, be the perimeter sidewalks on the Titus block, and you would have sidewalk on the west side of the street. So I guess you're saying it doesn't get plowed promptly, but there are the existing sidewalks would remain on this side, and you'd be adding perimeter sidewalks on the Titus block side. One thing I did find out when I was doing my research, there used to be an island here at the intersection of Beebrook, where people heading north on 47 would just be able to turn, and then there's an island, and then people coming south on Calhoun making a left would be separated, which I think is why you have such a wide turn here existing. And another thing to do is tighten that corner up, make sure it's still got a good enough radius for trucks to make the turn. But that will also have people slow down a little bit if they got a tighter turn to make. And another thing, and again, we didn't look at the option, is that there's only the one stop sign on westbound Beebrook. And, nobody likes stop signs or traffic control, but if it's warranted to put in stop signs, it's certainly something that can be looked at. The one thing is you don't use stop signs for speed control. Because what tends to happen when you do that is you get a lot of rear end accidents. So it's not really meant to be there for speed control, but there's, with the amount of traffic and if the wait times were significant, it's certainly something we could look at.
Do you think the DOT, based on the traffic counts and the speeds, like what, any guesses on how DOT would feel about putting a stop sign on,
Either Calhoun or
oh yeah, on the north-south, I guess that is?
yeah, the north, south. We really didn't, again, we didn't perform an actual traffic study.
They would require, if that was even an idea, they would require a full traffic study,
Okay,
an extensive traffic study to put a stoplight or a stop sign. It's an intense traffic study.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we would even want that.
But,
I
you
just
know.
didn't know if you could say offhand, like if they had sort of a benchmark or guideline as to what warrants a stop sign versus not.
Was your speed sign up during your testing period for speeds? Or was it done without that sign?
I don't think.
It was
that's-
not up. It was
Yeah.
not up, but I one concern I did have is when, because I saw the counter thing, it was hooked to the state road signs right in front of Hickory Stick, after they've already gone through 2 crosswalks and are slowing down for turns. So I think, if we really wanted to capture top speeds, we would need to get one up closer to the bridge, coming down, or on Calhoun, coming down both hills outside the depot. What's the speed as they're coming into it? And Jim had talked about maybe looking at that again. We'd have to kind of decide whether it warrants that or we just go for the medians anyway. I mean, if we need more data in order to support the medians, if that's the way I like them. I should see what everyone else likes as well, but if we need more data to support putting those in, then we would definitely do a more extensive traffic study capturing the speeds coming down the hills.
Whatever option you choose, even if there aren't stop signs, you're going to need to do a traffic study and show what the impact of what you're doing is projected to be. Not just on speed, but on traffic. Putting these islands here, does that mean some more people are gonna cut through Titus to avoid slowing down, or, vice versa? You just don't know, and that's why you have to do a study.
Thanks. Any more questions about traffic calming?
Well, there's one thing that, all three options, it'll say, gets rid of that small island at the north end of Titus.
Oh, right. That was unanimous. Nobody liked that.
That's green space, we can say.
Yeah.
Okay. You're okay with that one?
Yeah, I'm good with
Yeah.
that.
Not that green.
I know, I was just gonna say, I don't even think it's green. Oh, yeah, and it's full of road
I think we can all
sand.
say no one will miss that.
No. All right, do we want to go with questions and comments? I pulled option 3 back up. Do you want to?
My first question would be just
Yeah.
general one-way versus two-way.
If you're talking about one way on Titus Road behind the pantry, is that what you're talking about?
One way on
That
Titus
one way,
would
that one way.
include one way. in
Is that
parking
one
lot.
way, the trucks, trailer trucks come through there to do their deliveries, UPS, if you have one way and in fact on your one way you showed possible parking in one way, there's just no way for, where's the truck gonna stop? I mean, the gas station and Sean's place, and we also, I mean, most of the trucks don't go, well, some of them do go through the center, but many of them come around Titus because we're the businesses back there that are getting those kinds of deliveries.
I mean, it's something that we look into.
So I would be
design.
afraid of one way for that reason.
Well, it's even one way, you don't narrow the road slow for trucks to maneuver through the block and also pull over and make a delivery if they need to.
But it wouldn't work for one way and parking zone, which I point out that.
Well, again, I widened the road and find option 2 here.
The widened, which road? though?
I widened it to allow the parking option 2.
Let me see. So,
I kind of narrowed the road and I bumped out parking on this side. So you have the travel way and then I bumped out for the parking here. Same thing here, you have the travel way and I bumped it out to allow for parking on the side of the road.
So that puts that back sidewalk further under the pantry
Right,
property
Right.
with that particular option, which is already being taken, or proposed to be taken private property here, 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 on that. So option 2 would actually
Well-
increase the amount that's taken from the back, if it were available.
right, but again, there's an existing sidewalk here, we just,
Well, there's flagstones, you mean the flagstone walk
The
across the
flagstone
lawn? Yeah,
walk.
that's actually an informal
But I've seen people use-
hospitality that is there for people to use, but it's also able to be taken up in case that business needs to expand onto that, which it obviously is going to, if other dining spaces are required. So
and again,
that's a
the
problem.
property line is here just off the dome. So it's not as much of an encroachment onto the property as you would imagine.
Well, I actually looked at it, and if you take the spaces that you're putting into the property line, add the sidewalk at a regulation size that you're putting into the property line, it takes most of our green space, this private property is currently away.
So I guess
So I would-
my question was
Can I
more
finish?
about
For a second?
traffic flow. Is the general consensus that you'd rather have two-way throughout the parking lot except for in front of the pantry, you may have to be one way going out, but, I guess Jim and Michelle, when we had our meeting, you thought the two-way.
Are you talking about on the road or
I'm
in the
talking about
parking lot?
On
In the-
Titus and in the,
After thinking about it, we thought two-way was still probably better on Titus Road because we're afraid it would send too much traffic into the
Center.
the
Yeah, that
center,
makes
which is
sense.
already, it backs up, especially when the buses are coming through. It already backs up there right by between the Hickory Stick and the Supply. And if Titus is one way, more people are gonna have to go through
somebody
there.
made the point, I never even thought about this, I live in Litchfield, so I'm here all the time, but people would cut through the pantry.
Yeah.
Well, through
Not the
Marty's.
pantry, Marty's.
Or
They
cut
would
through
cut
Marty's.
Cut
if
through
you-
Marty's,
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
already do.
and that's already,
Yeah.
it's already
That's
dangerous for
definitely don't want
pedestrians.
that.
So I don't think making it one way really
Okay.
solves any problems.
So then
No.
we're jumping to option 2 or 3 as far as traffic flow.
Yeah, and one thing I did notice when I was at the site, a delivery truck parked here at Marty's right here, the ramp to get out. And traffic had to wait for him to finish offloading and
Sure.
he was there quite a while, so.
They usually park on the left or right side, and people can see by. Sometimes.
Or right on 47.
Sometimes they park right in the entry ramp on the left side. And if he does a good job, there is still room for people to see by, but if he doesn't, then it's a little bit weird. But, you know, I get paper deliveries and things like that, and, you know, I try to get pull it to that loading bay where the garbage is and then coming back, but, you know, it's hard, I mean.
I hadn't thought about delivery space, but if the loading back by you, around the corner by you, maybe with some better signage. And, Blaine talking to his delivery people, they could just park there and hand truck over to his spot, on the,
Yeah, right, go around, Dormaki gets their deliveries there, I try
And-
to have my guys there, although they don't. A lot of times they come in from the north, and so they'll pull around, and they'll just block the cars that are at the bottom of my walking ramp, and
Mhm.
they'll just unload in 4 minutes and off they go. But if they had a loading parking spot, that they damaged the building better last time. But hopefully.
I'm not sure that FedEx, particularly at this point, would really respect any designated parking. I mean, they are just delivering however.
They do what they please these days.
And it's not a happy situation. UPS isn't as good as it was either, but FedEx is particularly offensive.
Yeah, it's because the guys are on timers.
Yeah.
I mean, they literally are on timers. When they step out of the truck, they hit a button
Mhm.
and they have to get back in the truck and be moving in so many seconds or else their bosses jump ugly on them.
which
That's-
stinks,
that's
but
why-
at
that's
least,
why they
at
behave
least
the
it's
way they do,
quick.
because if they treat us with respect, their bosses treat them with not respect. It's like, it's
Hmm,
ugly,
That's a challenge.
yes.
It's a challenge, well, and especially in our tight spaces and,
Right, but I mean, I don't think it's gonna change.
Right,
so it-
right.
No, it's not.
so at least they're quick.
Right.
I mean, poor guys, I feel for them, but hopefully they're not blocking stuff up too much. But maybe some signage, you've got a loading space, so maybe
I
that
don't
will
think
help a
the
little.
signage will help, though, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's
I mean,
good,
it's not a bad thing to do, but
right?
it's not gonna be
I
helpful.
mean, we park in that loading space, 4 days, not.
Okay,
There are probably one, 2, 3, 4, at least 5 spots that we make up. One parking lot. So like, we squeeze in on the exit out of the front parties and us.
Mhm.
We'll add 2 extra cars to narrow that exit. And then we also, on the north end of the parking that faces the pantry, we'll add as many as 2 cars to the left of where the line's at.
right,
And then we'll put a car in the bay as well. That's 5 extra cars that
Right.
they don't count. They're off parts.
that reminds me, I just wanted to mention, and then I want to get more of the comments so we can kind of talk about some of the issues that you guys have pointed out. A couple people pointed out, and Roy and Tim mentioned that we didn't talk about the municipal lot. And the reason we didn't talk about it is because it is part of the community center plan, which is hopefully going to move forward. However, I did walk back there with Jim and Kevin, and we have Eversource coming to improve, to put in additional lighting. And we're gonna work on some improved signage. So the parking back there should be improved, temporarily for at least employees. I think it would be a good idea, regardless of the plan, for us to come to a consensus about maybe putting up some signage on the interior of Titus with a 2-hour or 3-hour maximum, so that we get a lot of the employees that are all day parking in the municipal lot, because that will just free up, with very low, we don't have to wait for hundreds of thousands of dollars of grants to put up a couple signs and to point people to municipal and to put 2-hour parking in the interior. So I think we should talk about that. We could do that, in a
Would
couple
there be
months.
some friendly mechanism just to enforce that?
Well, probably not, except it would just at least point out the intent that it is not for all day parking. And, if we see people doing all day parking, we could, if it becomes a problem, but, we'll be friendly first. I don't have any, and we don't have any parking meter made people.
No,
So,
no, I know that.
but I
That's why
think,
said
but I
friendly.
think if we at least sign the intent,
Yeah, no, that's-
it'll be a start. So we can talk about that.
I mean, 21 spots along Titus Road, to me, is a no-brainer.
Right.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
just give, whether they count or not, it gives us relief. And, that to me is just the most obvious thing to do, forget everything else. Give us 21 additional spots, 'cause
Yeah,
those would get used.
Oh,
And
that
if
would be
you
good.
could, if you made Titus Road, I mean, the spots along there, as long as it wasn't taking away Sean's property, I don't know where the property is.
that's actually
Or
all
what he's
town
willing to
property.
do. Might be willing to do it, but if the spots went along there and were made non-restricted,
Mm.
so that people could park there long,
Well, that
and then the.
that would be
Ti-
good.
And then the Titus Square part, you call it Titus Block, I guess, but
Yep.
if the Titus Square part had the regulated parking, and the municipal parking was approved enough to actually use it, I'm wondering why option 3, if you take the 5 spaces which are in our, I know you say it only comes a little bit in our plan, but in fact, I know how many cars fit over there. We have them. 2. There's 2 cars there. To make 5 cars, takes out the perennial beds, takes out the plantings. Well, it does.
No, I'm saying
Yeah. And so.
it's your property,
Yeah.
so if you don't want
So if
would
you
take them out.
so if you just take those 5 out of your figures, option 3, you end up with a net gain of 6 spaces for the whole project. Option 2, you end up with a net gain of 1 space. This doesn't include the Titus Road thing, because that's a fantastic addition. But we're talking about eliminating the green space, which some of us, in fact, the people I've spoken to, are quite in favor of it for walking their dogs, et cetera, et cetera. And you have a square that's centered by something where people can get some rest and recreation and sit under a tree, because some people can't walk from one end of town to the other without stopping and resting. To be honest, I know my wife can't. So
Okay,
there's
so-
4 points that I just want to push.
So the
So what I'm hearing, and Michelle told us some of the comments in her emails. So this is your property, right?
Yes,
So you'd rather not see this here?
that's correct. We already parked 2 cars. There are 5 cars would eliminate
Okay.
garden
So
streets,
that-
et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, so that's gone. You'd like to see this larger again, back to the way it was?
A usable green space
Okay,
in the center
then,
of the square, to some degree.
then we're gonna lose these.
Well, if you put the other spots on, I mean, in
No,
other
no,
words,
these can stay, but then
Yeah.
these are gone. If we give you another 5, 10 feet here, then we cannot have parking spaces here.
but you have them now. It's just that you've added them on the other side. So I'm not sure what.
One or the other is given.
Right,
No, we can or eliminate these.
We would
We could-
eliminate those.
but my point is, if you do all this, you're still only coming out with 6 extra spaces for the whole project. How is that economic?
No, I'm not saying yes or no, I'm not saying
Yeah.
what's good or bad, I'm just trying to get a feel what,
Mhm.
we don't live here, you guys are
Right,
here. We're
right.
trying to understand what's important to
Right.
you, and from what I'm hearing is putting this back to
Usable.
what it's like now. Not exactly, I'm saying better, more uniform or something. I'm just trying to say that, you will lose parking, which with the Titus, maybe it's not as important.
Well, with the additional, however many spaces that are over
Over,
there, and
right,
with
right.
regulated parking, I don't think it is.
Okay.
Because that opens up the spaces that are already there. The reason
And I've heard that a few times now, that with the Titus parking. But two-way, you won't have Titus parking, right?
Yeah, you
Well, you'll just have down below. You'll have the.
On the south
We'll have
side.
this,
Right.
this part right here.
Oh,
Yeah,
the
no,
one
the
with-
two-way is like this.
Yeah.
But I think, Michael, part of what,
Right, right,
Michael, part of what is
Behind you.
above and beyond with the space and how it is today is accessibility and handicap.
Sure.
Sidewalks, which is something that, quite frankly, is totally not addressed today, right? So.
sidewalks is another issue.
Yeah, but handicap accessibility and handicap parking is effectively at zero. And that is something that I think it weighs into the whole decision to look at this project above and beyond just the sheer number of parking spaces.
Right.
So
That's-
how it is, so how this started? We went for originally a connectivity grant, which is connecting different areas. We put it, connecting pedestrians to, so it seemed logical to connect the town hall to the Titus Square, Titus Block with a system of sidewalks.
Right.
All the way to the community center.
Right.
If that ever got built.
Right.
We submitted a grant or an application for a grant, it got denied. I don't think we had enough planning. We did it kind of quick on the fly. So now we're thinking that if we get a good concept plan, we'll try and go back to that program and really fight for the funding.
Right.
Part of that is this connection of sidewalks.
Right.
So we can't, if we start disconnecting it again.
Right.
To your point, so we still have to, if you follow what I'm trying to say,
I
we
do.
still have to try to.
Yeah.
But I understand if the parking is not that big of a deal.
The sidewalk will go on the property without taking away the possible use of our space. In that area. That's all I'm saying.
Again,
And that still keeps your connectivity.
this, on this plan here,
Okay,
don't even,
don't marry it.
no.
Alright.
It's later when somebody really designs, he
Yeah.
talks to you, he'd
Right.
say, do you mind us putting a sidewalk through the middle of your property? You say no, he says, how about over here?
Right.
The two property owners agree and the sidewalk goes there. So none of this is,
Yeah, and again, we have a connection here, the connection there.
so you may not even need that.
Yeah, you don't really need it.
The only comment I have about sidewalk in the back for handicap accessibility is that if all the businesses are on the other side of Titus Road and the sidewalk is on this side of Titus Road, how do the handicap people use that sidewalk to get over to the number of businesses? Because on this side, it's all our back. Nobody
So
goes
to
to
get
that.
to.
Yeah, that's
The
both
opposite
sides.
side.
How would a handicapped person access all of these from this sidewalk when it's on the other side of the road?
Well, I don't think the intent
As opposed
is,
to having a sidewalk at the side.
the intent isn't to get people parking here over to them. They all have their own parking lots. They should all be addressed separately.
These are businesses, they should have handicap parking spaces.
No, sidewalk.
Yeah, but if they have their own
A
parking.
handicapped person should not park here to come here. They should park here. If this is a business, there should be a designated handicap spot.
All right.
You don't want sidewalk behind your.
No, that's not the point. I just didn't
No, no,
understand the
I'm just
logic of
trying to
having somebody
understand
having to cross the street every time they went to one of the other businesses.
I don't see how there'd be enough room for a sidewalk behind your building. The way you use it now is what you need. Why would there be a need for sidewalk behind the pantry?
Here?
Yeah. Who's gonna walk that?
In our first meeting, it was discussed trying to have a sidewalk around the whole entire block.
I don't think that's very practical. I don't think it is, and I don't
When
think.
people
it's
are
needed.
here
I think it's
in the
that.
community center,
Mhm.
they're
It
gonna walk,
doesn't, the community center that doesn't exist.
if it ever
May never.
does, so, or employee parking. They come here, they need a sidewalk to walk to enter here. I mean, I guess they don't need this.
Right.
Right, that was the question. that's all.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't seem to go anywhere.
It's just to be able to access the community building, which isn't there, but your point is well taken, the parking. If that parking was improved, which I've driven back there myself several times and just been thoroughly disgusted with it, that really needs to be dealt with. If you think that anyone is gonna park back there as it is, I wouldn't. I wouldn't wanna walk from there. It's not well lit. It's not nice
It's
parking.
not lit at all.
And,
But
yeah,
they-
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
but it's not nice parking, and in the winter, it would be horrendous. I mean, only a younger person would really attempt that.
Right, so we're gonna need to improve the municipal
Yeah,
parking.
and I
That's,
don't think
that's
I would
clear.
use a sidewalk behind the tent.
Well, I just,
Well,
I,
it's
the-
not for, it's,
it's for connecting everything. So I just wanted to point out
Yeah,
that,
I think connecting though, you might have enough from the parking and the proposed community building. You just had a little piece along the side, perhaps, of the back of Titus garage.
Sorry. It's another thing, you gotta look at this, more global pictures, that some of them come here, having a perimeter walk gives them a place to walk. You know, for exercise, not just to get from point A to point B, but it's a way to attract people, they have this nice circular walk instead of walking through a parking lot. And the whole idea is part of this whole connectivity is that it's total circulation, not just related to the block.
we're really looking at three pieces. There's a hope that the community center gets built, I think. Then you have the center, and then you have the town hall and the market and everything over here. It would be nice for everyone to be able to go back and forth without getting in a car and driving from the community center to the town hall. Maybe somebody can, walk, park back there for the farmer's market, walk through here, get a cup of coffee, go to the farmer's market.
exactly, well, and, or go to Kmart's or George Home. I don't want people having to walk in the street. It's just not, and I wanted the sidewalk on the other side because that is where the shops are.
Right.
But every other foot is a driveway.
Right.
So it didn't make a lot of sense to put it on that side because it's a lot of driveway. So if if you go to Depot Dog and you want to go to Kmart, it'd be nice not to have to walk in the road.
But
It's
again,
really,
And I keep going back to this. In a year from now, when there's actually funding and they hire an engineer to start design, then there's gonna be serious discussions about going on somebody's property to put a parking space. And if you were totally against that, then it goes away. The sidewalk, if the consensus is that the residents really don't want it there, this is your project. It's not the engineer's project. So, this would all, we would tell you how it might affect the grant or not in funding. Not saying it would or would not, I'm not sure right now. But basically, what I'm getting from this, two-way traffic's better, more green space in the center. We may lose some parking here, but it sounds like we have enough parking here because of this over here. You don't like the idea of this, you'd rather keep it green, which is good, which is fine. So I think this is right here is the pinch point.
Yeah, and I can,
Can I ask one question? In the existing conditions report, you don't show any spots in the parking lot between the pantry and the island today. You don't have, because they're not lined.
they're
They're
kind
not
of,
lined, but people park, we probably get 7 or 8 cars in there. Should go
Facing the island or
Facing the island.
facing the island.
Facing the
are there any facing the pantry?
No,
no.
Not unless
Facing the
somebody
island,
gets one.
yeah. but you don't show any on the existing conditions report. So are we undercounting those spots that people are actually using every day?
Well, the existing one, you don't count the ones in front of Hickory Stick either, right?
No, not counting, there's nothing counted in front of Hickory Stick.
But Roy said he
No,
did.
Yeah.
Roy said he did.
Those spots aren't striped, but they were counted.
Oh,
We
okay.
count
I
it,
took the length of the curve.
Right.
So
And
you did count them in the.
I did count
You
them.
measured the length of the curve and said this many can fit there.
And there's one thing I also noticed too, is that your spots are 10 foot wide. You know, you narrow them to 9 foot, you probably gain a spot each row of parking. It's just something to think about.
Is that is that like what's
9 is standard.
oh, 9 is standard.
I mean, you can go, I mean, Hartford allows down to 7.5 and some
For what? For what is that?
for parking.
Parking
space, the
width.
Width of a
Width.
parking
Really?
space. But
Yours here are 10,
they're 10,
the ones you have.
not the ones in front of Marty's, but in the center lot, they're 10
Yeah.
feet wide. So, you know,
Huh.
each row, you probably gain a space if they were only 9 feet. You know, it's just something to think about.
Can I usually don't weigh in on behalf of a planning commission in something like this, but I know my planners pretty well. And I think I could probably give some general impressions of what the planning commission would think about this. First of all, there's no way they would, there's no way they would like a one-way option. And it's like, that's the parking spots here on the south stretch of Titus Road. It's a no-brainer, and that's town property, you know, go ahead and do it. I mean, what the planning commission, the biggest concern the planning commission would have with any of these proposals is the diminution of the present green space in the middle of the parking lot. I mean, with any of these proposals, the first words out of some of my planners' mouths would be, wait a minute, you know, where is the placemaking component of this project? And the obvious placemaking component is the existing island. And rather than trying to subtract from it to create parking, the planning commission would have the absolute opposite point of view. They would be like, shouldn't we be doing something to enhance that space to make it a destination, more of a destination? They would have the total opposite view of this as opposed to what any of these proposals that we have right now. And of course, planning commission looks into parking issues in the town, and all of our village centers have those issues. But the parking issues in the village centers are different depending on the village. Okay, in New Preston, it's a nightmare. I mean, not only is there not enough parking, there is literally no place to put any more parking. The problem in the depot isn't so much that there isn't so much parking, it's that the problem is where the parking is, people don't want to use it, and sometimes with good reason. Placing these spots on the south stretch of Titus Road, you know, that would really help. It would be relatively inexpensive. It would be relatively quick. You wouldn't have to go through any grant writing process or anything like that. It's town property. If the town decides it wants to do it, it comes to the planning commission, says, is this consistent with the plan? We would say absolutely, and you know, put it out to bid. It's, you know, that could be done in less than a year.
Well,
Serious. Yeah. Well, I mean,
with the money.
with the money. If you had the
It
money.
doesn't cost
Well,
nothing.
hey, you're talking to a planner. It's the town with $1.25 billion grant list. We could find the money if we want to do it. But the planning commission is going to have a real hard time with that center island being diminished in any way. And
Okay,
I'll just leave that.
I guess we're there then. So this will get enlarged. Is the size that is there currently large enough? So we have to have some type of idea. Would you like it wider
It
or?
makes it, well,
We're gonna lose these.
Right.
Or these.
Or
We're gonna lose either one of the rows.
It's gonna be
right.
what it is.
Would you rather have it
it's at least
facing your building or the green space?
facing the green space is better
Well, 'cause I think
for
people are
accessibility
afraid
all the
people
way around.
hitting your
Yeah,
railing and whatnot.
They
So I
do
know
that from
people
the
they
other
do that
side.
already,
I
yeah.
know people who parallel park there, I
Yeah.
think it's for takeout mostly,
Right, right.
they do, but
It's actually better along the way to.
I don't recall the total.
What's the normal parking?
Well, it's gonna be 42 feet, parking on just one side.
So basically, we're gonna
Well,
take
if
this,
we angle
we're
it,
gonna
it'll
take
be
this space
narrow.
here, add it to the green space in the middle. Basically.
Actually.
We're just gonna leave it
actually,
alone.
This is
Or
gonna
just,
stay.
no,
Just leave it alone.
Yeah, it's not.
Actually, it gets wider because of this got narrower. We'll actually maybe make it wider. If you hold between the green space and the pantry, the way it is now.
So, let me ask you one.
Can you put existing up
You
there?
made that, Michael, let me ask you, you made that strip one way from north to south.
Yeah.
You angled cars in as
Yeah.
they came in from the north.
Yeah.
Could you get 8 spots in there?
I'm trying to find
Are you
it.
asking me?
I'm asking every.
Oh, I don't know what
Like,
size
There's
was.
because
existing.
Right now, what's awkward in there is cars coming both ways.
Right, I don't have a
If-
problem
if-
with one way.
If that was one way.
One way.
It's from
That was
north to
option
south,
3.
In between the islands and you came in from the north, all the way down the right, angled front. And you make them,
Yeah, you can put it.
I don't have a
You
problem
can
with
fit-
that.
You can fit some more.
so everyone.
And we had come from the
If
south. but
every-
they didn't
everyone
do
came
it.
this way, just park this
He
way.
left.
What are the existing? Here's right here. So everyone, if this was one way, people just came in this way.
No, we're already past
You
that.
get
We're already past it. You can't keep.
I forget how many are in there now. We probably.
You have to push this back. Here, you just make it a one way, this
Right.
bit.
Go look at that. I think that'll make it.
I don't think we're gonna have trouble improving this.
Alright, good.
We're gonna lose this, which is fine. And we're gonna put as many spaces, we're not gonna go smaller than this, we're gonna go,
If I end up.
if we have room, we may go larger. Which we probably
And
will
it
have
could
room.
be more uniform. I mean, it doesn't have to have that weird
We're
part
gonna
that
save the
jumps
3
out, you
trees,
know.
we're gonna save the 3 trees
Okay.
and build around the 3 trees.
And this is
You're gonna lose
space-
this bump out.
This is space to the left of the green.
Or I meant to parking.
Oh, I get that. Yeah, we're gonna take out that part.
This is what it is now.
This is what we're doing.
The planning commission is want to see at least a template placemaking on that, or else they're just gonna be forgetting.
In other words,
Yeah, no,
it's
that makes sense. That makes
That's, yeah,
sense.
they're not gonna,
It is much
Yeah.
wider than it needs to be, so this can actually be narrowed so that the
So
island
that
actually
could
gets
be a
wider.
little bit.
Yeah, I would say
Right.
it's-
That's fantastic.
So currently, right now, this row here is much larger than you need.
oh, well then,
Which actually makes it a little dangerous when people are trying to walk from here to here.
mhm.
They have to get across this while somebody comes around this corner.
Right.
And they're standing in the middle of this, I don't know how
So
many
you
feet
can
it is,
make
large.
the green a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
And take
This-
it from that side.
You're gonna get more parking spots and bigger green space.
Well, I just wanted to
Well,
say, one thing
Ding,
that,
ding, 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 ding.
I know, I was gonna say,
I have one comment.
I know. That is
The
good.
planning commission would be, you'd be talking their language.
We got it.
You know, it's like
one
you-
thing that we had talked about though, and maybe since it might, the island might get wider, we had talked about maybe putting a sidewalk through it.
Through the middle.
Yeah. that would
Either
be
through the
nice.
middle or somewhere, because
Connectivity
again,
through the middle
we're
makes a
trying
lot
to
of sense.
connect so that you
Sure.
can go,
Make
if
it
you're
pretty.
shopping and you want to go to the pantry. So
It's
let's,
appealing to walk.
We used to have a
Yes.
sidewalk that through the middle actually years ago. There was one in this.
So you would never want, this was my idea in the beginning, but you know, who am I? Honestly, I don't understand it in the middle of a parking lot. You would never think of moving this to here. So you walk out of the pantry and you step out and there's a 20-foot green space in front of the pantry.
But then
I
people,
wouldn't-
but then
I
people
wouldn't
feel like
have
it's
that
only for
idea.
the pantry. And as it is now, we maintain it. Those are our tables that are, and just to clarify, Michael owns the
For every-
property.
I
the
was
business.
thinking, a mother sitting here with a few kids,
Yeah.
having lunch, not paying attention because she's got
Yeah.
3 kids,
Yeah.
and one shoots off into the parking lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
That's the only thing I was
That's,
thinking about.
That's a
There's
valid.
no
What's the thought?
boundaries.
So,
Yeah.
so she needs to go eat by the river where there are no cars.
I'm just saying
And the
from a safety
elderly people,
standpoint,
and the elderly people who don't want to walk as far.
how you
But
look
yeah,
at
as long as
islands
there's
and
at least
picnic
that
tables
much
in the
green
middle of a-
Tim, as long as there's that much green space to me, I don't
I would,
have a problem with that. You know
yeah,
what I
I
mean?
want the space.
It's more about
You
the
want to
usability, it's
separate
about the
as
utilization.
for everything.
Right.
Yeah,
Just one thing you
I
have to
think,
take into account is accessibility.
Mhm.
You know, the
Which
fact
it's
that
not.
it's grass, it's not accessible. It
Mhm.
has to be a hardscape. So you gotta take that into account. And yeah, it's a nice central green space, but not everybody can use it. And that's something we really gotta take. into
Maybe we
account.
could make,
can't you put a ramp up to it?
Well, you could put, like we said, center sidewalk, but how do you get
It's gonna have to
throughout it
be-
to get to a
It's
table
gonna have
over
to be
here?
handicap accessible. No curbs.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And again, right now, it's, you know,
Some-
not officially a seating area, it's on the
Mhm.
town property. It's, you know, in the table, it's nice that the table's there, in fact, I sat there, tell you the truth, I got a coffee from Marty.
See?
And I
You wouldn't have felt comfortable.
You're perfectly welcome. You like that tree?
That's the best tree on.
Yeah,
But eventually, if this becomes a designated gathering space,
Mhm.
it's gonna have to be ADA compliant. There's gonna have to be some
maybe we make,
hardscape, flat surfaces for wheelchairs and green space. Once we start
Yeah.
making this a public
yeah,
park,
from our standpoint right now, it's conceptual, and we'll just leave it as green space.
Yeah.
But that's something that's really gonna have to be looked at when it comes to the actual.
because planning should notice that and say, is this handicap accessible?
Oh, yeah, that's part of the process, but I mean, we're just talking in general terms here, and it's all conceptual, but from the planning perspective, they're gonna look at that island and say, are we even going to make an attempt at having this be,
Bigger.
a destination, or or make an attempt at placemaking, or, no one thought that Judy Black would ever become a placemaking project. I mean, me included, and I'm chair of planning, and it worked out great. So
so
that's kind of where we would be.
I just want to let everyone know, we have a zoning meeting in
Okay.
here at 7, so I just want to wrap up. Okay.
You know, one of the things about that spot, especially now that there's some depot Wi-Fi, it's a quiet spot to be. Because, I mean, I like Marty's, but if you're sitting along the side between Pell's and Marty's, you always feel like you're sort of in somebody's way when they're trying to walk by. If you're on the other side facing the main street, it's so noisy.
And you're on a hill.
talk.
And you're on a
Well,
hill.
and then yeah, but so really that spot has all sorts of potential.
Like I said, I went to Marty, and I sat there, so.
It's all right, it's for everyone.
All right,
That's what we're gonna call it. We got everyone.
yeah, so thank you all
right,
so
thank you,
much.
Michelle. Okay,
You're very
thank you, Michelle.
welcome. Thank you. We're
Thanks,
gonna,
thanks for coming out, guys. Really appreciate it.
yeah. All right, let's see.
Thanks for being on fire tonight.
Oh.
Yeah.